So I used to build my last company used to build imaging devices, CT machines, X-ray machines. So I was
Hi, everyone. I just want to first say thank you all for being here tonight and welcome to Boston Arts Academy. My name is Samuel Mendoza. I'm the chair of the Visual Arts and Design Department. And on behalf of all of us at BAA, we're really happy that you're here with us for our talk tonight with Ja'Hari Ortega. We are incredibly proud of Ja'Hari and her work and very privileged and honored to have had her as an artist in residency here last year in the spring, right before the opening of Big Hoops to Fill, and to have her back here with the Greenway to talk about that work and to talk about her process is really exciting for us. So thank you for being here, and I'll hand it over to Adam to give you some intros.
Thanks, Sam. All right, I just want to echo that thank you. Thanks for coming out on this beautiful spring night. This is really exciting for us, and we're so glad that each of you guys can be here. Before we get started, I have some thanks, and it's actually a bit of a list, so I just went ahead and wrote them down. So first off, I'd like to express gratitude to the Boston Arts Academy for your partnership producing this artist talk. Namely, I'd like to thank Sam Mendoza and Joachim Cruz, who are both with us this evening. I'd also like to thank all of the wonderful folks who make public art at the Greenway possible. The Barr Foundation, Golson & Stores, the Greenway Brismus Improvement District, Meet Boston, the Wagner Foundation, the Richard K. Lubin Family Foundation, the Deborah Monroe Noonan Memorial Fund, the New Commonwealth Fund, the Mayor's Office of Arts and Cultures on Monument Initiative, and the Mellon Foundation. We're very grateful for their continued support and guidance throughout the journey, bringing contemporary public art to downtown Boston. We'd also be remiss to not offer a special thanks to BRM Production Management, our fabrication collaborators on Ja'Hari's artwork, Big Hoops to Fill, which you will learn more about this evening. And finally, I'd like to thank our very own Emily Chavarria from the Greenway Public Art Team, who led the production of this evening and worked with great organization and care to make this event the best version it could be. So in terms of the program that we have ahead of us, we're gonna start with about a 20-minute artist talk. Then we'll transition into a panelist conversation. We'll save 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A. And then after we're finished, please join us for a 30-minute reception out in the lobby where we have some drinks and refreshments. And just as an FYI, as we go through these sections, Ja'Hari is gonna be controlling this monitor on the left with a clicker. But this one on the right will just be kind of going on its own pace, so don't be confused if the slides are off. If you're looking for what she's referencing, it'll be on this left monitor here. So without further ado, Ja'Hari Ortega is a multidisciplinary Boston-based artist, educator, and advocate who uses a vernacular language to capture the pulse of her city. Primarily drawn to metal sculpture, jewelry making, and performance, Ja'Hari attended Boston's only public high school for visual and performing arts, Boston Arts Academy. How many BAA students do we have in the crowd? Or alum, there we go. And also the nation's first and only public independent college of art and design, Massachusetts College of Art and Design. Any folks from, there we go, awesome. Thanks for being here. She currently works as a perinatal doula, assists artist Stephen Hamilton, and has her premier public art sculpture, Big Hoops to Fill, on view at the Rose Kennedy Greenway in downtown Boston. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Ja'Hari Ortega.
Hi, everyone. That's better. thank you all for coming. It's really nice to look out and see a lot of familiar faces, and I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to share this moment with you all. Let me find my clicker. So I want to take this gathering as an opportunity to share with you all my, sorry, we practiced this, but it's not working. So I want to take this opportunity to introduce myself again. Some of you know me, but I'm going to use this artist talk as a way to start at the beginning, and some of you might recognize where you joined my story, but we're gonna start way back when. I think it works, yeah. So I'm gonna talk about my childhood, my art education, my studio practice, and some of the things that inspire me. So this picture here is where it all started. I think I'm about 5 years old in this photo. You can see me with some craft scissors, some construction paper, and a box of crayons, and some furniture that was like color pencils, and yes, I did try to draw on the walls with the chair. So when I was in middle school, my art teacher, Miss D, was actually a student at Mass Art. And one day she had brought a pamphlet to me that was advertising this program called Artward Bound. And it was its first year running. And so I applied and I got into Artward Bound, which is a free college prep program at Mass Art focused on art and design. And so it was then when I took off in terms of I wanted to add everything to my toolbox, right? Like I had this college, right in front of me, and I started taking all the classes I could, from comic book art to painting, and I learned what I liked and what I didn't like, and I challenged myself and sometimes the teachers as well. I remember taking a painting class, and it was one of many painting classes that I had to take, and it was observational, and I took off my glasses, and I'm like, well, what if I can't see, And so I started painting in my painting class that was observational without glasses on, and this was me challenging, what I'm learning and how I'm learning, in high school and even middle school. Oops. So I started that program in 8th grade, and with that year of prep at Artward Bound at Mass Art, I was able to develop a portfolio that I actually used to apply here to BAA, and I got into the visual arts department. So it was then that I started to, continue to develop my practice and foundational skills. So we had figure drawing class and more observational drawing, and for me, I think I started off very conceptual when I was in middle school, and so I kind of had to work backwards then to move forward again, and it was a bit of a challenge for me, but it worked, it paid off. So during high school, one of the summers, I took my first ever jewelry class, and it was with Artward Bound at Mass Art, and I fell in love with both the act of making jewelry, but also jewelry as a concept. Because I started to make things, I started to look at things a lot differently, and thinking about heirlooms, thinking about the jewelry that, my mom and my aunts and my grandmothers adorned themselves with. And from there, I really thought that I was going to major in jewelry when I went to college. When I graduated high school, I started at Mass Art, and for those of you who don't know, Mass Art has a foundation year, so you don't actually start your major until the second year of college. So though I was an intended jewelry major, I really continued to explore, continued to take all the random classes that I could before I really decided. And it was my first time taking a performance art class my freshman year. And it was with my professor, Chandrine Schaefer, and it was an amazing experience. This piece was actually from the second performance art class that I did. It was my final, called Back to Lower Roxbury. And it was a public performance, and it started in the Boston Common, where MLK ended his walk in Boston, and I walked backwards, back to Lower Roxbury, back to what is now the northeastern field, where, considered Lower Roxbury, that's where the march had started. So this piece was about that. So some of you may not know, I have a dance background. I started dancing at a very young age and continued. I actually applied for dance and got in at BAA, but I chose to continue with my visual arts journey, and I continued to dance outside of school. And even into college, Mass Art is a part of Pro Arts, and I was able to take dance classes at the conservatory at Berkeley in college. So I took college-level dance classes as well. So I really enjoyed the fusion between this physical art practice that I had and now starting performance and bringing that dance, that movement, the way that I embody emotions and things like that into my practice through performance art. So using the concepts that I had been exploring, but then using my body to express them, to share them, to communicate them. And as a student, I had many opportunities to join artists in the real world. So this performance was at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston with artist Cecilia Vicuña, and it was for an MFA late night. And so I was one of the performers, and I got to join her. Oops. This was me joining a performance at Praise Shadow's Old Space for Helena Meraferia's opening for the Generations show. And this was made more recently at the Brooklyn Art Museum, performing with many people, but for Maria Magdalena Campos Pons, a Cuban artist. That was just a few years ago. So in addition to learning performance, so I decided to major in SIM, which it stands for Studio for Interrelated Media. And that's what I decided to major in instead of jewelry. And the way I personally describe that department is it's concept before material. And it's very student-led, so all the students are doing a lot of things and we learn from each other. So in my class, there were installation artists, sound producers, painters, and not only did we focus on the making, but we focused a lot on the spaces which art exists within. So in addition to art making classes, in SIM we also have exhibition courses. We learn how to curate, and we do staging and lighting and all of the things. And I really enjoyed being in that environment, learning from my peers, and continuing to kind of explore, right? Like since a young age, I took all the classes, and in SIM, in this department, it allowed me to continue to do that. I wrote a song and recorded a song when I was in this department because I was learning from my peer who was a singer. It's on SoundCloud if you look hard. But yeah, I recorded a song. We did a fashion show in a day where we, produced the show, built the stage, did the lighting, designed the clothes, made the soundtrack, all within one class period. And that energy that I got from that department really reflects how I feel like I treat my practice as a whole. And I didn't want to not abandon, but I didn't necessarily leave behind all the other things that I was interested in, and I really, really enjoyed sculpture. So I minored in sculpture when I was a mass art student, and this is one of the first pieces that I made. This piece is called Just So You Know, and it is a steel chain, and it's, if you hold it up by the clasp, it's about 4 feet tall and 18 inches wide. And so this is my way of like returning to jewelry, right? Like this is much larger in scale, but I was continuing to play with what about jewelry that I wanted to return to. So this piece is really about identity and pride, right? There's this, I'm half Puerto Rican, and there's this thing like, you know a Puerto Rican when you see one because there's a flag nearby or something like that. And if you know anything about the history of the Puerto Rican flag, you would understand. And I'm wearing this chain today that's inspired by. But this piece is also about the weight of identity. And, you know, there's been multiple times where, unfortunately, it's not uncommon, where I'm the only person of color in the room. I'm the youngest person in the room. I might be the only person who identifies as a female in the room. Like, it's still very real. And so in this piece, I'm exploring that. And this is a picture of me when I got when I got the chain. And this is a picture for scale. And so this is a photo of some of my classmates doing an iron pour. And I put this in the slide because I wanted to give a little bit of context about the act of making and how performative that can be. And that's a part of the reason why I chose to minor in sculpture. It's because the piece starts at the beginning of the process. And I don't have it here, but I actually made a video work during COVID, again, collaborating with someone who works in the opposite side of the building from me. And the video was basically me mimicking how I move with the different equipment in the metal shop. But it would switch back and forth. I was doing the same movement, but it would switch back and forth between my chaps and a dress and some dance shoes. Just really to kind of show the movement and things like that. I was really inspired by this ladle here. You can see that there's 2 people that need to control it. One is considered the lead and one is considered the follow. And that really, really did translate to me to salsa or something. So these are some of the pieces that I made using that process. So that specific photo, we were casting iron, and I have casted some iron sculptures. But this piece that you're looking at now is one of my first sculptures casted in bronze. So it's solid bronze piece, and they're big hoops. Continuing the concept, continuing the idea and the exploration of weight and identity, you know, the bigger the hoop, the bigger fill in the blank, you know. Some of them are more than others, but also like literal weight, right? Like, you know, some people who are used to having hoops in their ears, generation, like your ear hole starts to stretch and all these things, and these are ways that like your body shows, you know, how time has passed, and like you're also committed. Like you're committed to wearing those hoops even if your piercing is stretching. Like at that point, like cool, it's gauges. This is another piece casted. I actually did a mold of my own hand. Some of you might recognize this. So in Puerto Rico and in other cultures as well, a lot of people get a mano de azabache, or a figa, I think some cultures call it, and it's a symbol of protection. So you usually get it as a baby, you wear it as a pendant or a bracelet or a necklace, and it's meant to protect you from evil eye. And this piece is called Protección, and again, exploring with the idea of jewelry, scale, and things like that, but also thinking about material, right? Like, so this pendant is typically carved out of stone, and if it breaks, that means it took the impact of whatever evil was put towards you. But this me being cast in solid bronze. Like it'll take whatever's thrown at it. And that's what I was thinking for this piece. This is me in the jewelry shop at North Bennett Street School. So I graduated during COVID and at Mass Art. So it was Zoom and all of the things. And the career or the path that I thought I was headed on was not necessarily an option anymore because they had to furlough people, that there was no money. And so I got an opportunity to be a teacher's assistant for the jewelry department at Mass Art for a semester. And that program was in collaboration with the North Bennett Street School as well as the SMFA Tufts jewelry program. And it was in that class that I reconnected with Melissa, who's in the audience today. And through that connection, we decided, hey, let's catch up. And I learned a bit more about North Bennett Street School and their program. And I think this is beautiful because I decided that it was a good fit for me. And, I know how to be a student, so why not go back to school? But also, I was an intended jewelry major when I was leaving high school. And so the opportunity to revisit that was I was excited about it. So North Bennett Street School is a trade school. So in contrast to my very wild and conceptual experience at Mass Art, a lot of the people who graduate from the jewelry program or any program really go straight into the trade, work in shops and behind the scenes at a lot of places. And so instead of, concept and all of these things, we were talking about craft, precision, and technique. And this program was great in terms of teaching me studio discipline, because yes, I can think and I can be all over the place, but one of these pieces, we would work on it from start to finish, from 8 to 3 until it was done. And you look at it under a microscope and make sure your stone isn't cracked or chipped or anything, because then you would have to start over. But the discipline, the craft, the attention to detail, I think only strengthened the direction I was headed with my art. So with this new information and my history of, I started TAing a little bit for youth programs when I was in high school at Mass Art. And so I have some experience with teaching assisting and things like that. And I also teach assist at Mass Art with the undergrad students. And I decided to take a leap, and I got an opportunity to work with the Design Studio for Social Intervention in Dorchester in collaboration with Company One Theater. And they had a show called Hoops. And it was just a beautiful fusion. The way that I describe art a lot is that it's a language of its own. And whether we're all in the visual art field and we're all talking about adornment, our work might look different, but we're having a similar conversation. And I thought that my work in collaboration with the Hoops show was that we're speaking two different art languages, but we're having the same conversation. So it was a beautiful opportunity, and this workshop that I led was a nameplate making workshop. So one of the first things that you learn when you're in high school taking the program at Mass Art, or when you're in college at North Bennett Street School, is how to saw and file metal. And a nameplate is a flat piece of metal that's sawed and filed. So I thought that was a perfect way to introduce people to, actual jewelry making and real life skills. But also it was called Crafting Your Identity, and it was just a beautiful way to bring in community members from the street and have conversations about adornment and our names and what our names mean. And it was a great, great experience. And I was invited back and did it for a second time in that space. So after all of this, I revisited my studio with a new, fresh like set of eyes. And I rummaged through my mom's jewelry box. A part of my education at North Bennett Street School was not only jewelry making, but also repair. And so it made me look at jewelry a lot differently. And I became really interested in the active repair and conservation and what we save and all of the things. These earrings that you see here are actual earrings from my mom's jewelry box that were either damaged or lost its pair. And I consider this kind of a sculpture. And it's inspired by this photo. So that piece was titled Me, My Mama, Her Mama, and Her Mama's Mama. And it's literally me, my mama, her mama, and her mama's mama. I was lucky enough to have both my great-grandmothers on my father's side and my mother's side. So growing up with them in my life and reflecting on that time was really special. And I like to think about that often. Sometimes I'll wear a necklace with both of my great-grandmothers in a locket. This piece is called Try Me If You Want To. And it was first shown at Show Up Gallery, which I'll show a little later. But this piece was kind of my start in exploring, okay, how do I play with large-scale sculpture? How do I bring in more of my performance? So this piece is made inspired by, the racks of jewelry and fake earrings at the beauty supply store or in Claire's or something. And I like making work that is approachable for somebody who's not necessarily in the arts or, like my mom or something like that. Like, oh, I know what that is. Like, let me go see what that's about. And so Try Me If You Want To, it's named that because I'm thinking about double meaning at this point, right? If you've heard Try Me If You Want To, it's usually a warning. But this is meant to be an invitation, a literal invitation to play. So the hoops are actual hula hoops that I made gold. And theoretically, you can take them off the wall and play. And so it reframes how we view and hear language. And this is it's shown in a gallery. So this was not my first time exhibiting work, but my first time exhibiting work in this new, I went through all of this schooling, I'm in community, and it's at SOA, which is super cool for Boston artists, And I was really, really grateful for this to be my show that I introduced myself to the community with, in conversation with Rixie and Wavy Wednesday, and Rixie's here today. Curated by Shanoa Baker, and this show is called Extra. And again, I really enjoyed being in conversation. We're having similar conversations about identity, about pride, but our work looks different, right? So we're just adding on to the conversation. In this slide, I share some images from a few residencies that I've gone on. My first residency was actually nomination-based, and it was in Maine. And it was a very, what do you mean? You think I belong here? That's intense. But it was really eye-opening because I hadn't considered myself as a person that would be eligible for a residency for whatever reason. But being there and this particular residency was Surf Point, and they didn't have any requirements. There was no final show. You would have a studio visit, but they literally said when I walked in, they were like, if you need a nap every day, go for it. And it was an emotional process for me to, one, realize that somebody thought that I deserved to be here, and then also being granted the time to not do anything, especially coming from a city, coming from hustle culture, when's my next check coming in? The fact that I was able to slow down and reflect was amazing. It was in that point where I just started to brain dump. So I just filled my studio walls with paper, and every day if I had a random thought, a question, I just write it down. I still have that, and I'm still checking things off. And it's anything from like, oh, I have this cool idea, to, as a full-time artist, how do I do my taxes? You know, anything, you know, all of the things that came to mind, I took the time and space to write it down. I read a lot. I did take naps. It was on the beach, and the neighbor had llamas, so I took advantage of that. It was great. I also went to Atlantic Center for the Arts in Florida, as well as another residency in Maine. And this photo was taken at Atlantic Center for the Arts, and if you peek in the blurry background, you might see that Big Hoops to Fill was born there. So during my time at Atlantic Center for the Arts, it was my first residency that I flew to, because it's in Florida, and I didn't really think I could afford to ship all these crazy materials and sculpt something out of metal and have to art ship it back to Boston and store it and all of the things. So I literally just packed what I had at hand. So I packed an X-Acto knife and some colored pencils and just random stuff, really. I just took whatever was on my desk and put it in my suitcase. I was like, this is gonna do. And it was with those materials that I kept drawing these hoop earrings. And I was really just thinking about why do I keep returning to this? Is there something that I haven't done yet that this is calling me to do? And all of these shapes came to mind, but also this came to mind. With the simple materials that I had in front of me, I was brought back to that 5-year-old version of myself that y'all saw at the beginning of the presentation. And I just used that as an opportunity to play again. You know, I started cutting up paper and drawing with colored pencils, and thinking about play and joy and how, as time goes by, we take ourselves too seriously and everything is work and home and work and home. But how will we reintroduce joy and play back into our lives? And I made this. And so this is the drawing of Big Hoops to Fill and collage that I made while I was at Atlantic Center for the Arts, using all of the materials that I listed before. And so technically the swings could be made with all those shapes, maybe one day. But I started thinking about this and thinking about why this, and also thinking about why earrings, why hoops, why have I been stuck on this for so long? And again, thinking about what is it that this piece will do, could do in the space. And I will also add that I did have an idea of where it would go at this point. Before I left, I had met Audrey in front of Rob Gibbs' Pro Black's mural. And casually, hey, are you an artist? Yeah. Can I see your work? Sure. Would you go bigger? Absolutely. Why not? And so when I left for the residency, I was thinking about what could be outdoors. So I was a little persuaded to think bigger. And this is the swings. Thank you. And with this, I was continuing to think, who do I want to bring to this space? Why do I want them to come to this space? What is it that I'm saying? I was thinking about returning to play. I was thinking about the people who knew what these earrings were. Because on Instagram, you might see some people are like, skeleton bones, I don't get it. Yeah, true story. Not everybody knows. But for the people who do know, it's an immediate, I know what that is and I'm called to it, right? And so we can talk about this as an object, right? We can talk about, oh, it's bamboo hoops. I used to wear those in the 90s, and yeah, those were my days, and da-da-da-da-da. You start reminiscing, right? And so we can talk about art all the time, and it's great. But I wanted this to be interactive because we can talk about a lot of things, but when do we be about it, right? So with this piece, I really wanted to be like, oh yeah, we can talk about it, but I'm actually giving you the opportunity to play, you know? And so I remember the first Instagram video that I saw on, like that somebody like tagged me in, and it was this older woman with silver hair, and she was just cartwheel, cartwheel, cartwheel. And I was like, go off, because I can't do that. But like, it really, like, it kind of threw me off a little bit, but that's exactly what the piece was intended to, like, to do. You know, the fact that she felt called and free to do that in the middle of downtown Boston, that was her space. It was amazing, you know? And I saw, you know, this other woman, she was like, has this tiny baby. She's like, this is my baby's first swing, and of course it's this one. And I'm like, yes, you know, it's great. And so I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity. And this is my family at the opening. So I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity. I'm really grateful with the response that it's received. It's really gone far beyond, you know, I just thought my friends, my family, you know, people in Boston gonna pull up, you know, it's cool. But it's gone far and wide. I've gotten messages from Chicago. I met this woman from Atlanta. She's like, I flew to Boston for the first time in my life just to see this. She's like, I didn't know there was Black people here. Which is also like a big conversation, but like, I'm glad that this piece is also like starting that, you know, and making that known, which is really lovely. Oops. We're gonna get here. But yeah, this is just an aerial view from the opening event that we had. And again, I've been so overwhelmed with all of the positive responses, all of the positive feedback. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity. And again, to be in conversation with other artists, but also like the piece is doing what it meant to do. So much more than I could have ever imagined, and I really hope that it continues to do so. Thank you.
All right, Ja'Hari, thank you so much for bringing that to this space. I don't know about you guys, but I just learned a lot about your practice, and we've been working together for a couple of years now, and every time you speak, I'm learning more. And so thank you so much for bringing that to this space. You're also making this whole venue feel a little cozy. I hope you guys are feeling comfortable. This is definitely a family that we're building here. And so to round out this little stage that we have up here, it's my privilege to invite a couple panelists to the stage for a conversation. Audrey and Destiny, do you guys want to come on up? So, on my immediate left, we have Destiny Palmer. Destiny Palmer is a Boston-based artist, educator, and public muralist whose work is rooted in the belief that color holds memory. Her practice grew from watching the women in her family, especially her grandmother, shape beauty and meaning through quilts, gardens, and everyday acts of making. Palmer's work showcases a deep commitment to understanding color as both a scientific phenomenon and a cultural historical force, one that is shaped by pigment, histories, migration, memory, and communities who live with the work. And my colleague, Dr. Audrey Lopez, is a curator, writer, and cultural organizer working at the intersection of contemporary public art and spatial justice across New England and Southern California. Grounded in participatory approaches to public space, Lopez's practice works to strengthen communities' relationships to public land and ecologies through art that inspires sustained civic engagement and creative collective action. Lopez currently serves as the director and curator of public art at the Rose Kennedy Greenway Conservancy and worked closely with Ja'Hari on developing Big Hoops to Fill. All right, so I'm gonna pass the mic on over and let's get to talking.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thanks to everyone for coming out this evening. Thank you to Ja'Hari, thank you to Destiny. I'm really honored and privileged to be here, sitting actually between, I didn't know I was gonna be between, but I feel very held in this moment. But really quickly before I start, I do wanna thank again Adam Torres and Emily Chavarria for organizing this evening, as well as the team at Boston Arts Academy, Sam, Joaquin, Donnie, and Grace, as well as Alex for documenting it. So thanks so much for the invitation and hosting us. It's really lovely to be here. I want to keep it sort of short, but it's hard because from your talk, my mind went in 1,000 different directions. I have a whole new set of questions, but I also want to make sure we still have time for Q&A from folks from the audience. But really quickly, I'd love to situate folks here and kind of ask you if you could share a little bit about how you both met. And then I'll share a little bit about how we all met. But yeah, if you could share a little bit about your relationship and how you've stayed connected through the years.
So I had the privilege of teaching here at Boston Arts Academy for about 3 years, right after, not immediately after undergrad, but during that time, I was like trying to figure out what to do, but it was like an amazing opportunity. Ja'Hari was in my class for figure drawing, exhibitions class, painting class. I think that might have been it. So we go way back.
Yeah. That's how we met.
So Ja'Hari, I know we had talked about a couple of full circle moments that have brought you here. One of them being, in connection with Destiny as a student and now on this stage together as both accomplished artists in the public realm as well as gallery spaces and institutions. But I'd invite you to share about some of those kind of full circle moments that you shared with me before about maybe thinking about work on the Greenway and then actually coming to have work there.
Yeah, and they're constantly happening. These spirals, these like revisiting where you once were, and I love it. Because I think it speaks to I'm really going with the flow and I'm following where I feel called to go. And the fact that these moments continue to happen makes me feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. But yeah, when I was in high school, when I was Miss Palmer's student, we actually went to the Greenway and looked at some art that was there. And then when I was in college at Mass Art, I took a class that was about like fabrication and exhibition in public space. And the final assignment was to work with a team to propose a sculpture for the Greenway. It was hypothetical, but like that was the project. And then here I am. And I ran into that professor not too long ago at an art opening, and he was kind of like, yeah, that's crazy. And it's just like, yeah, I didn't set out to do that. It just worked in that way. The same as returning to jewelry. I didn't know that I was gonna have the opportunity to work at a bench again. I actually taught here last school year. I didn't know that was gonna be an option either. But it feels good. It feels good to return. It feels good to stick with an idea and see it through.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add into that, or?
So a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to bring some of my current students who are now in high school. Oh God. But I had a chance to bring them down and talk to Ja'Hari, and it was in that moment where I was like, I've been here before, and like, oh my God, I'm really old. Like that there's not, but it was like this really beautiful moment with Ja'Hari sharing with my students just the process, and then they were checking out Rob's work at the same time because you were painting that. I mean, it was just, things have happened over the years, so it's really nice to just be a witness to students growing. That is like the best gift of being an educator.
Thank you. And I love all this applause in between answers. That's awesome. Well, so I also want to say that, I had learned about your work a little while ago, followed you on Instagram, but I also got the chance to meet you this year in front of the Dewey Square mural. Because you were also an artist finalist in our first open call ever for the Dewey Square mural this year. So I just want to shout out to Destiny for that. It was really exciting. We actually got to be in front of the wall with Rob himself. So that wall has led to a lot of interesting connections and brought us to that space together. One of the things that I was interested in and thought about as you were speaking are that both of your practices are so interdisciplinary. You go from small-scale jewelry to performance to large-scale sculpture, and Destiny, you work on color research and abstract painting, but you're also moving into the public realm. You have, your first sculpture, which was I Am Codman Square out in Dorchester. You're working on new work in the public realm for this summer. And I'm really curious, across those kind of fields, I feel like some of the core things that I've been hearing from both of your practices is the importance of having rest in public spaces or creating space for that, especially for women and folks of color in Boston. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that experience of being able to bring that into our city through public sculpture. Either of you would like to answer first?
Yeah, I can. So the way that I think about it is more of like my studio practice is also me figuring things out for myself. And as much as this was this piece was about, invitation to play and things like that, it really started as a reminder to myself. Like, as I get older, don't lose this, right? And so all of the work that I do, and even when I'm like teaching and stuff like that, I try to like live by example, meaning like I'm thinking about this thing, but it's something that I'm actively thinking about, actively practicing. So I don't really have the answers. I'm still working on embedding play and joy into my life, and it's a struggle, and you pick it up and put it down and pick it up. But yeah.
I think there's something to be said about like some type of cycle and allowing, you had mentioned earlier, Ja'Hari, like going with the flow. I mean, so much of the practice of making and thinking and then being in the place of celebration when you're creating too, like fulfills you and then like fuels you to like get to the next idea or think, complete another idea. It has to like constantly be moving in that way. I don't know if that's answering your question, but yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to do a quick time check, and I'm going to do one last question and then open it up for Q&A, if that's okay. And this is a question that I oftentimes think about as an educator and someone with a creative practice, but I see many artists thinking about and working on. But how do you balance your practice as an educator and an artist? Ja'Hari, this was your kind of framing of this question too. I just want to give you credit. How do you show up as an artist when you're also teaching? So I'd love to hear both of you speak on that.
It is a hard balance, but I think if you are centering what you value in your practice, in your classroom, then like it's
Hold the mic a little closer.
there's something.
I think you just have to hold it close.
Okay. Sorry. There's something regenerative about your practice when you're teaching and making. If you allow your classroom to be really a place of play, really a place of experimenting, allowing yourself to be the student alongside your students is a really crucial part of that balance. And for me, I love my practice so much that I've figured out ways to make time for it, either before school or after school, so I can just feel literally balanced between what I'm doing all day versus what I really love. And it's not to say that I don't love teaching, but I currently teach middle school, grades 5 through 8. It's a lot. And so it just regrounds me, and you find, an ebb and flow. And there are definitely times where things are rush, go, 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 and you have deadlines. And then because for me, I think I've figured out a good balance that I can just kind of ease back into it. You find ways to make work anyway.
Yeah, and the example that is coming up to me that's a little more specific than what you're asking, I think, but when I taught here last school year, I had a section. I was a artist in residence, so it's a little bit different than being like a full-time teacher. But I had a section of the whiteboard that was my art practice to-dos. So when my students came in the class, they saw what I was working on. They saw that I had to do my website and I have to update my CV, and I have a deadline for this grant. And yes, you're in high school and you have to go to class, but I'm using math and I'm using my writing skills, you know what I mean? It's real. Even though we want to be artists, we still have to do these administrative things. And it was really great to have casual conversation around that, in the middle of class. Hey miss, you done with your portfolio yet? I'm I'm working on it, you know what I mean? But it was really nice because it's they responded really well to seeing the real life, and knowing that just because you're an artist doesn't mean you don't have admin work to do.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you, Destiny, as well. I know we're a little over where we were supposed to be on time, but I do want to open it up to the audience for any questions, and I think that Adam or Sam will pass a mic around. Yes, thank you.
We'll keep this one.
Yeah, perfect. I just turned it off.
Hi. My question for you is, as an artist, how do you decide which ideas are worth pursuing? I know that you must have a million, so how do you decide which ones you actually are going to bring to fruition?
You keep them all going at the same time, unfortunately. And then you find an opportunity where you get to fine tune the idea, and then you get to bring it to life. But if you keep the momentum going, if you're just giving it a little, 5 minutes every day of thinking and absorbing what it could be, somebody will meet you there, right? I think that's a lot of that conversation. I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it. And then you meet someone and you're like, oh, it can happen. Oh, this thing happens. So.
Yeah, I would agree. And this might not be a straightforward answer, but also I kind of do what the work wants me to do. I think I just keep it going, keep things going. And I also experience artist block, but then I just open to a random page of my sketchbook and give whatever is calling me time to explore. But I think a lot of what continues a specific piece is continuing that conversation in different ways. And so the concepts of my work come from experience with my family and conversations with the community. And when offered a space to show something, I'm thinking like, what do these people want to talk about? And so whatever that piece is, it's what gets the most attention at that specific time.
Hey. Okay, so in the last couple years, as an educator, I've seen the upcoming generation, and we're talking about undergrads right now, so experienced COVID middle school area, right? I've seen a lot of them reduce in the amount of media consumption that they are coming with, right? And I mean film, writing, stuff like that. If there was one piece of media, and this is for all three of y'all, one piece of media that you would recommend be mandatory for these kids coming up to consume, what do you feel like that would be?
My answer isn't direct, but something messy. Something like clay or paint, something that's gonna get you from the clean and the screen and the something that forces you to play and forces you to be a little uncomfortable so that you can loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something similar. Pen and paper. Like, it gets you so far. It is like literally the thing that will hold your thoughts and your drawings and your feelings. And it's the cheapest thing ever. So that.
I thank you for this question, by the way. I'm going a little different direction, but I would say any kind of college or independent radio. Getting different music, having the human DJ behind there, selecting songs, responding to our cultural moments, having that even in the background as part of your studio practice. I think that kind of independent music, independent sound is really important to cultivate. I think we might have time for one more question. Great, wonderful.
Hello. Hi, my name's Hector. Thank you so much for having this. It's the beautiful sense of community I'm seeing here, and I think it's really important to have things like that. As an engineer myself, I think the fabrication of things like this is really, really cool. And I was just wondering, you know, as an artist, was it difficult to kind of hand over your vision? And was there any maybe shortcomings, or what was like the biggest opportunity to learn from working with a fabricator?
In my experience, it was kind of fun. So we talked about what the options would be in terms of who would I be working with. And, you know, Audrey had asked me, like, do you have any preferences? You know, would you prefer, I think it was kind of obvious that I would prefer to be local so that I can go and see the work in progress in person. And we talked about, like, who would be in the space, right? You know, is it all older white men, or like, you know what I mean? Which kind of was the case, but the team was a little more diverse who I was talking to. But it wasn't bad. With my jewelry experience and stuff like that, I knew a little bit of CAD, so like every now and then I was like, I know what that means, you know? And also the project itself was really fun to make because I did have these grown white men swinging to test them. And I'm like, I need that to go a little farther, you know? And it was kind of fun. Like I just made it work, you know? And I'm just grateful that they received me as I was. You know, I feel like that might not always be the case depending on who you're working with. But I showed up to the meetings as I was, and I'm like, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, this is the vision. I trust y'all, because y'all studied this, you know? So I think that mutual trust and both of us being open to play, really, yeah.
I have one thing I want to add to that before I pass it to Destiny. I do want to say that in some of those meetings, you taught everybody about the clasps for earrings and that the ends need to be rounded so they don't poke your neck. And you made sure that the ends on your big hoops were rounded, just like real jewelry. And so I think that was such a cool learning moment between the engineer, designer, fabricator that you were able to kind of generate. So I loved seeing that conversation happen in real time. And I do want to shout out BRM Production Management. They are a woman-led, woman-owned company. And Bianca does a lot of the public art. Shout out to Triennial as well. A lot of the public art around the city. And so just want to shout out them and their team. Yeah, so I'm going to pass it to Destiny because I know you just shared a little bit about your fabrication journey as well.
Typically, fabricators are so excited to work with artists because they're like, oh, this is really cool. This is like they like the challenge. They like what you're thinking about. I've had the opportunity to work with 2 fabricators at this point, and the last one was someone I knew in school. She's a painter, and then started her own shop down in Providence. And we had just we already had like painting language that we could use to figure out things, and so there's so much fun there, and like room for there to be play and figure things out. And I think that they're typically really excited. They're like, oh my goodness, this is really cool. And like, they're used to doing like such technical things that this is like an opportunity for them to also be creative in this way. And it's a true collaboration. My experience has been, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that's a great note to end on. Again, thank you to all of you for coming out this evening. Big round of applause for Ja'Hari Ortega and Destiny Palmer. And I hope you all will join us in the reception hall for some snacks and goodies. So thank you so much.